Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tim and Josh on the buzz. We're with you today to break down a lot of news around business, tech,
The
entrepreneurship.
buzz.
Now, when you're breaking down, tech companies, when you're breaking down progress in international borders, there's a lot of challenges as a business. You will come across when you're experiencing exposure into new countries, into new geographies, or even markets, right? There's political, there's social, there's economic, challenges that you basically come across when you're challenging. So, we'll break it down. We'll be breaking it. Josh and I will be breaking down the way in how Google, Facebook, and other tech companies are going to be basically facing Hong Kong and Hong Kong's legislature, their security concerns, and why more than that, why they're actually talking about this, why this is a concern for Google and Facebook, why they might actually be pulling out of Hong Kong in terms of general operations.
Yep. So there's a report. An Asian industry group has reported that Facebook, Twitter, and other tech giants are reportedly making a move to move out of Hong Kong, to stop offering services to Hong Kong, based on a new piece of legislation that it's going to impose penalties on users who publicly release information. Obviously, this is a GDPR breach if Facebook and Twitter get away with this. You can't be leaking personal information, and I think that's what Hong Kong are trying to stop. There you go.
Yeah, so to break it, I mean, in the lines of personal, concerns. Now, I think people, for one, do have a little paranoia in terms of how much of content is actually shared from their personal pages, from their personal feeds, or their mobile phones. How much these apps are actually taken in terms of information. Where I'm talking about, your camera, your gallery, your mobile phone, your microphone. Things in terms of your geographical location, where you spend your time, what you do there, who you're talking to. Things like these are, when you give access to these apps, you actually give access for these apps to even at sometimes maybe even function without your knowing, which is why phones like, if it's Samsung or Apple, I know for one, I mean, there will be other companies other phones also that actually go into this. But let's say, for example, when your camera's on your iPhone, there is a green light that comes on the screen. And then if your microphone is being used when you're on a call, you have the orange, dot. When you're basically talking about different privacy concerns, these are basically, industries that are very closely linked to your personal space, your personal communications. We know the concern that people talk about currently. I mean, WhatsApp is at a point where they can't really be replaced in a flick of a switch, and Facebook owns it now, and they basically track certain keywords that you communicate with to target ads to you. So what's the story here? We know that the EU basically started with all the privacy concerns when it comes to these companies and their tech laws. But Hong Kong, what's the story there now?
Right. Okay. So obviously this has all started from 2019. In 2019, we saw some mass democracy protests in Hong Kong. And during that time, Hong Kong saw a massive wave of doxing. Now, doxing is the leaking of private information such as names, addresses, bank details, any personal information. And it was, and there was information being leaked by parties on both sides. Now, because of this, Hong Kong are now pressing for stricter laws in terms of doxing. Doxing is illegal in most countries anyway. In America, you can get done for cyber terrorism for doxing people. So I think this is a good move forward for Hong Kong. If Google, Facebook, and Twitter then, if they decide to move out, it's not going to look good for them. They should be fully on board with this and not threatening to move out of Hong Kong just for this particular reason.
Do you think they have space to progress here? Do you think they have a scope here, considering the story going on with China and how China doesn't really allow any of these apps to perform or function.
Well, China have got really strict laws anyway. This is why China have banned a lot of social media networks, simply because of the threat that it's all to do with cyber security. And now we all know that places like Japan, China, anywhere in the Asian continent, they're very, very strict on their internet laws, and that's why a lot of these social media networks have been banned, because they use personal information in ways that they shouldn't be. There's a lot of room for Hong Kong to push this forward. Really, if anything, the ball is in these tech giants. Is in their court. Like I said, if they decide to move out, if they decide to stop offering services to Hong Kong because of this, it's not going to look good for them. It's going to tarnish their reputation. Now, we all know that there have been multiple cases put towards Facebook, multiple cases put towards Google, a couple against Twitter because of personal information leaks, and it's been investigated plenty of times, and it's always been found that they're using personal information to target ads, stuff like that. It's not good for them, but at the same time, it's not good for Hong Kong if they decide not to go forward with this. Do you see what I'm saying?
And in terms of when it comes to avoiding sanctions for technology companies, they're basically refraining from investing in offering their services in Hong Kong if it comes to this point. And we're talking about how they will have to carry on, depriving Hong Kong businesses and consumers of using these apps. So, lots of these digital marketing conversations. Hong Kong has seen an unprecedented wave of doxing, right? And
Yes.
Doxing is basically the action of understanding or studying a consumer's activity and then publicizing that to maybe a wrong kind of I'd say against the consumer's awareness. So this is what these companies can do. This is what these companies can go to. It's just a matter of understanding how aware are the consumers or the users of these functions and where they're going with it. What's your take on that? Do you think, regardless now, even though the rest of the world pretty much, apart from, I'd say, countries like North Korea, do you think, Hong Kong should just ignore this and go ahead with the exposure? Could it actually be a risk to Hong Kong with regards to how the government handle the citizens? For one, I know that they don't really have the freedom of speech.
Yeah,
Things like that.
I mean, when it comes to doxing is a very, very broad subject. And when you hear the term doxing, it's normally to do with the illegal activity of spreading personal information. We don't really tend to look at the legal side of things. The legal side of things, again, it can be things like using the cookies that you have on your computer to establish what kind of ad should be targeted for you. That's the kind of that's legal. When we're talking like when we're talking about the influx of doxing attacks in Hong Kong in 2019, this was illegal doxing. This was information being leaked, personal information of people, names, addresses, relatives, bank details, etc., etc. That's the sort of stuff that should be illegal. And I think if Hong Kong are gonna keep the likes of Google, Facebook, and Twitter on board, as well as these other tech giants, the legislation needs to be worded correctly and put across in the right way. It only targets these illegal doxing activities and not the legal side of things.
Now, apart from the fact that users might not be too aware of where these where the information is going, users might not be too aware of the scope of how far this information could be used. Maybe the country just needs, I'd say, if Google, if Apple, if Facebook are looking at performing their common routines or their work in these countries, there is there is a wide support that doxing should be legislated against the amendment exercise. That is, now the exercise is basically to address the issue of doxing. The privacy commissioner is basically empowered to take action and carry out the investigation. But there is Carrie Lam. This is Hong Kong's chief executive. He's basically saying that with the legislature attracting concern, but claiming that fears and expressions about the impact of the national security laws have not been shown to evaluate. The security law introduced in 2020 has been widely and internationally condemned. Now, I don't really think China and Hong Kong really care too much about what other countries say, because they've got their own agenda, they've got their own type of their own routine, right? So it's basically Lam has basically said that the security law has been slandered, defamed, and it's basically the case for this privacy law. When it comes to Hong Kong authorities, these guys are looking at maintaining this. They don't seem to be backing out of taking back their operations, because they pretty much seem to have their own I'd say, search engines and social media platforms by themselves. For example, WeChat.
Yeah, I mean, they don't use WhatsApp. We know that for a fact. There are multiple other social networks that are banned in the Asian region, especially in the likes of Hong Kong, China, and Japan. But they have their alternatives. Like there's a platform that I use quite regularly as an avid gamer. I use something called Twitch, and I watch all my games on there. In the likes of not so much in Korea, but I know in China and Japan, they use the alternative called Douyu.tv, simply because of the privacy laws around Twitch. Like because Twitch is owned by Amazon. Amazon are known for using your personal information to target ads, which is illegal in China and Japan. So there we go.
Yeah. So with that being said, we're going to be rushing into a couple of videos on who we are at Relaks Radio. Stay tuned right here. We'll be right back with you. This is Josh and Tim, and you're tuned in on The Buzz. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? When you are basically going out and during a day, you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. If you buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods, they're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, in the UK. We've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? Because in a company where the stock is traded openly on the stock exchange, the value of that stock is driven by supply and demand, it's driven by emotion, it's driven by news, it's driven by quite a lot of variables over and above the actual accounting or total net worth of that company. I mean, we've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing. Right? And the company may still have value. It may still be doing quite a good thing.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies will ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with the important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies will ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Buzz. You're tuned in with Tim and Josh. We're talking about how China and Hong Kong are basically having a lot of issues with tech companies breaking borders or coming into operations within these countries. Alongside that, I'll be breaking down different reasons as to different ways in how a company should act as to when the company's profits start to plummet. Now, times like these are when you need to consider what companies should do, where people are going to go, how companies leverage or innovate in times of uncertainty, or let's say just like there's a lockdown almost every other quarter. Companies and people need to keep innovating. They need to keep understanding what they can do with the people, with their assets, how to utilize the assets. So it's coming into, obviously seeing a company's bottom line may wear away as the business goes through a hard period of time, but in some cases business owners facing the issue is through panic, or how they take measures can reverse the trend. Now, usually, people are emotional creatures at the end of the day. So, if you let emotions get the best of you, there is a chance that you can lose your identity, you can lose the hunt for profit eventually, and if you, as a leader, lose your motivation to basically come back or step back, if you let emotions take control of you, you can actually lose the trust or the faith in your employees. And I'm basically going to be breaking down 15 business owners and what they do in times of profit loss, or understanding how they can deviate or change paths when it comes to things like this.
Yeah, right. So, I'm just having a look into these companies that are threatening to quit. A report coming out of The Guardian, and I'm quoting it directly from the article itself: a sweeping crackdown on opposition and dissent by Hong Kong authorities accelerated with the implementation of the Beijing-designed national security law last year. More than 10,000 people have been arrested in relation to the protests, and at least 128, including journalists and politicians, have in relation to the new into the new security offences. The Hong Kong government has rejected international criticism of its crackdown and instead vowed to further strengthen laws. I personally think if you're going to accept the criticism of these international companies, there is absolutely no point in having your own individual laws. Every single country has its own individual laws. There are things that are legal in the United States that are legal over here. There are things that are illegal here that are illegal in other countries. Every country's got their own laws for a reason. So why we're criticising Hong Kong, or why these international companies are criticising Hong Kong, I have absolutely no idea. If you don't like the way that country is run, don't waste your time with them. Hong Kong are trying to strengthen their internet laws, cyber laws, and if they want to stop these illegal doxing attacks, let them crack on. Let them crack on. My only issue is that Facebook, Google, and Twitter are basically trying to get the backing of these other international countries to try and further strengthen their case as to why this shouldn't go ahead. And I think that's morally wrong.
So to basically add to that now, I mean, just like we said before, Beijing or China is basically, they don't really seem to care about what other countries are following. But I think in terms of power that these companies have, they do have a significant amount of strength to the mass, or strength to communicate or come in touch with the mass media in changing the perspective of this country or these regions in terms of how they handle their internet laws. But that would only put a bad name on them. So talking about how they could adapt to it. Google and Facebook, even in terms of how the AIC managing director, this is Jeff Payne, they've said that the language of the legislation would subject intermediaries and local subsidiaries to criminal investigations and prosecutions, for doxing offences could come to a point where they don't even remove material from platforms. Now, I've actually spoken before about how there is AI getting integrated in platforms for let's say content that is being reported, content that is being breached in terms of people's privacy if they are published online. This is a common issue with the increment of the usage of internet. People are now more vulnerable to what content of theirs is being uploaded. People make fake profiles. People make take pictures of you and upload them in other places where you might not want to have yourself exposed on. And in reality, most of these intermediaries already have taken notice and have a takedown in terms of regimes to deal with doxing content, and such requests would be responded to without any undue delay. Now, to also talk about how the Wall Street Journal had said that the AIC agreed the doxing was a serious concern. It had appreciated. Now, with these countries having their own market, China has 1 billion people by itself, and if they just have the algorithms that Google has, they could create their own. They probably have their own internet that is accessible to only them, and it is the only accessible internet through them. So I wouldn't say that this doxing concern would be a problem, or I wouldn't say that it would be the companies, but in this case I'd say it's the government that is actually keen on understanding the people inside out, and I'd say it is not manipulating, it's monitoring.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all to do with internet usage. All to do with internet usage. Every different country has got their own laws on internet usage, and China have got some of the strictest laws in the world. We all know this. There are multiple reports of China banning certain websites, multiple reports of China cracking down. I think one of the strictest countries for internet usage, though, is North Korea, which is obviously the Asia. But again, we all know that North Korea is a dictatorship kind of country where a lot of stuff is banned. If you so much as speak negatively about the government, you're liable for life imprisonment. That's the kind of country they are.
That's true.
It's Every country's got their own internet usage laws. We've got our internet usage laws. I don't know what the internet usage law is like in Sri Lanka, for example, but we're quite relaxed with it. We're quite relaxed with it in the UK. But I don't know. I don't quite know necessarily why people are complaining about all this. Because again, it's individual laws for individual countries. No one batters an eyelid about any other law. So why is the cyber law being spoken about? I don't get it. It's being criticised for absolutely no necessary reason other than people like these tech giants their income is being threatened. That's what it is. Their income is being threatened. These multi-billion-pound businesses, trillion-pound businesses, even are being threatened. Their pockets are being threatened, and that's why they're getting their back up.
So, taking rise to these legitimate concerns that, doxing in proposed amendments could be an overly broad interpretation that people might not even have to face issues such as doxing when it comes to these countries. Regardless of how much the companies, these internet or tech companies guarantee the government that they will not be doxing content or information of the users. This is what they run on at the end of the day. So, this is their strong point. So, that's the reason, a company like Facebook do not immediately want to respond, or, Twitter is generally loud. So they've basically referred to questions given by the AIC, and Google had straight up declined to comment on it.
Facebook choose to decline to comment on absolutely everything. They're a very secret company, which is why when this inquest into Facebook was put forward, it took ages for Mark Zuckerberg to actually put across a statement. And he was basically he got a subpoena put against him to actually give evidence in court. But this is the kind of company they are. This is why I don't put any of my personal information on Facebook. I choose not to because I don't know where my personal information is going. I have no idea. There was a massive case over here a little while ago. I can't remember what it was, but it was a university that investigated Facebook, and it was put through to the Supreme Court, and they were fined billions of dollars, absolute billions, because of their data leaks.
Cambridge Analytica.
Was that sorry?
That Cambridge Analytica. That's
the one. They put a massive case, and they got fined billions for that. Because of their data breaches.
They had a massive conversation. This is somewhere in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, before Trump became president. Trump had basically looked at ways in how he had not necessarily manipulated Facebook, but he had manipulated how and what type of messages were being given out, to who the messages were being given out. They had come into the details of understanding, how users react at different times of the day, how users react to different colors that they see. It was the red or the blue or the white, the colors of the US, and even age-wise, location-wise, you have different states to see who actually is for Trump or pro or against him. And basically, when you have all this information, you're going to come to a point and understand how you can manipulate the people that don't really agree with you, and find a couple of touch points as to why they would actually turn to you. So once you get them by the hook there, that's the election is yours straight away. So yeah,
that's it. I think now it's time for a short break, though. So we're going to be back. We're going to play a couple of videos explaining who we are here on Relaks Radio. If you want to get in touch with if you want to get involved in the conversation, even you can call us on 07852 473 473. Alternatively, we are streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. If you've got any comments, leave them down below, and we'll put up your comments and talk about them. You're listening to The Buzz here on Relaks Radio, and we'll be back after this short break. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much has changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset, And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, I'd say to me, you had one to forget. That's it.
Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I'd dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid, I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
The Buzz.
We're back on The Buzz, ladies and gentlemen. This is Josh and Tim backing up how for the last talk segment we'll be basically breaking down the conclusion on how we think Facebook and Google will eventually take up their operations, or if they will step back from the Hong Kong market.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, across the world, there are multiple different internet laws. Over here in the UK, we've got the GDPR. In America, you've got the California Consumer Privacy Act. You've got the Virginia Consumer Data Protection Act. Canada's got its own Protection Act. New Zealand have, Singapore have, India have, Brazil have, Thailand. Like I said, multiple different countries have got their own laws on internet usage and where that information can be used. A lot of companies are flagging up issues with Hong Kong because Hong Kong are threatening to basically say you're not allowed to use personal information regardless. Which I can see why people are getting. I can see why these companies are getting starting to question it. However, it's their choice. It's their country. They can put as many laws in place as they want. We can't question that. If you're going to question their laws, question our laws. Question America's laws. Question New Zealand's laws. Question India's laws. Question Pakistan's laws. Every law has got its own law on internet privacy and internet usage.
Okay. Do you think each country have an agreement with these companies? Because I'm pretty sure these companies have their size to negotiate with a country in general. and to come to a point where they say, okay, look, this is what we'll be doing with the information. This is the information we'll be collecting, and you can't say such and such things about us, and you have to endorse us. You have to take us in terms of a competitor at some point if it comes to that. Do you think there are agreements that these companies make with these countries?
No, I don't think there is. I don't think there is at all. You can throw as much money at a country as possible, but the country have a law for a reason. If a country negotiates with a tech giant such as Facebook, if they agree to a deal with Facebook, then every other company is going to be in line wanting to negotiate all these different deals to the point the reason why the law exists is completely out of the matter. It's going to be complete. It's null and void at this point. Hong Kong are setting an example. They're setting
You're talking about the big countries. You're talking about developed countries. We're talking about the US, Europe, Australia. What's your take on countries like, let's say, Bali, Maldives, Seychelles? What about these countries?
I mean,
some places like, let's say, for example, Ethiopia. I don't mean to
I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, like, there's laws for a reason, man. There's laws for a reason. My doorbell's about to go off. There's loads of different reasons. There we go. Told you. There's loads of different reasons why these laws exist. Loads of different reasons why these laws exist. You can't question that. I think that's morally wrong of these companies to do.
Yeah. That you have a point there. You have a good point there. I mean, we're talking about how you're putting your citizens, personal information at risk.
Exactly.
So it's completely unnecessary to even, I'd say. Okay, apart from that, you spoke about Twitter. You spoke about how Facebook could be relatively suspicious. Google has not commented either, and Twitter has said something very lightly about it. What's your take on Google's activity?
Did you say Google have not commented on it? Have not admitted to it?
Google have not commented either.
Right. I mean, if you're going to slam one tech giant, you need to slam them all because they're all linked in their own way. They all use information. They all use cookies. Even with Google, like if you get targeted ads on Google, like if you're searching for something,
yeah, for sure.
If you're searching for something,
Google ads, it's basically
exactly AdSense on YouTube, for example. The ads are targeted, so they are using that information.
Google is YouTube as well. Facebook is Instagram and WhatsApp as well.
They're all using this information. So if Facebook are going to be slammed, so the likes of Google, the likes of Twitter, they all need to be put on blast. Which is why we spoke about this. I think about a couple of weeks ago now. The EU putting Google on blast, like they have done with Facebook, like they have done with Twitter, all for the same reasons. So I think Hong Kong saying to all these companies, yeah, this is what we're doing. It sets an example. And I think if that's how they want to run things, that's how they're going to run things. Facebook needs to like it or not. As my dad would say, suck it up, buttercup. That's literally all it is.
Yeah. I mean, you do have a point there. I mean, we are talking about how you need to, progress as well in terms of a company. You will definitely have these challenges expanding. But as a country, at the end of the day, you need to protect your citizens and their privacy as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm looking at countries that have got privacy laws on the internet. Just going off the top, just reading off of a list now: Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, the European Union. Obviously, they got the GDPR. Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hong Kong, Hungary, Iceland, Ireland, India, Italy, Japan. The list is endless. The list is absolutely endless.
Yeah.
But every single country has got their own tweak on it, and they're following. If you can follow those rules, why can't you just follow their rules? you see what I'm saying? It's
Correct.
like I said before, when Facebook, Google, and Twitter's pockets are being threatened, that's when they're going to start putting people on blast. And I think the moral thing to do would be to put Facebook, Twitter, and Google on blast and say, look, this is what we're doing.
Yeah,
We're doing this for a reason. You have to. You have to. You have to. There we go.
So, yeah. We'll basically be wrapping up for the hour right now. You had a bit, Josh, for today's show on the Buzz. We'll be seeing Josh again on Friday, and then make sure you catch him on the final whistle on
Saturday, 11 till 1, where we talk all things football. Obviously, depending on the result of today's game, England are playing Denmark in the semi-final of the Euros, and the winner of this game goes on to face Italy on Sunday. So,
is it coming home?
I bleeding well hope so.
What's your score prediction for?
I want to say 2-0. I want to say 2-0 tonight, and then hopefully we beat Italy in the final on Sunday.
2-0.
Another 2-0.
All right. Let's see.
There we go.
That's only one way to find out, though.
Only one way to find out. Join me for all the take of the European action on Saturday, 11 till 1, only here on Relaks Radio, where I'll be joined by Kingsley and Marat, where we discuss all things football. For now, I'll be back on Friday.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh, for tuning in.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is The Buzz again. Stay tuned right here. We'll be with you till 3 p.m. breaking down business, tech, entrepreneurship, keeping you updated on anything you need to, bring up in the office with your clients, with your, peers, with your seniors, basically. Just that midday conversation to get you going and help you understand what's going on in the world with regards to money. Good afternoon again. This is Relax Radio. Have a good day.
Have a good day.